the security dialogue.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. It's a pleasure to come your way once again on the Security Dialogue on Muslim Television Ahmadiyya International. Over here, we seek to demystify the issues around security, terrorism, counter-terrorism, conflict, peace. At the end, we want to seek what we call peace-building efforts to ensure that the global community is in peace. And this edition, we are going to deal with one very topic that has become a canker and is eating into every fiber of society. And this word seems to be a word that each and everyone is afraid of. And indeed, we are afraid of. It's terrorism. The word terrorism is one of those few words, like the internet. Just as you use your internet in your homes, it's become very close to us. That has insidiously worked its way into our everyday parlance. Yet, there is no clear, consistent definition of either what constitutes terrorism or who the terrorist is. Consequently, money laundering and terrorism financing continue to be a serious global threat, which can adversely affect a country's reputation and lead to dire economic and social consequences, such as de-risking. Internationally, there have been concerted efforts driven primarily by the Financial Action Task Force to implement effective measures to prevent and detect money laundering and terrorism financing. Today on the Security Dialogue, we take a look at money laundering and terrorism financing. And like we always do, we seek expert view, we seek practitioners' view, and sometimes even religious opinions towards advancing the cause of peace building in ensuring that each and everyone in society understands the dynamics and the terminologies. Today here with me in the studio is another wonderful gentleman who plays an integral part in Ghana and beyond when it comes to issues of security and international policy. I have here in the studio Mr. Adib Sani. Mr. Adib Sani is the Executive Director for the Jatike Center for Human Security and Peace Building. He is an expert in this field. He's been consulted. He speaks on issues on national television and international television, such as Muslim Television and Media, as we currently have him here in our studios. Mr. Adib Sani has a political science background from the University of Ghana. He has an MA in Organizational Management and Rural Development from the University for Development Studies, Master of Science in Defense and International Politics from the Ghana Armed Forces Command and Staff College. He's a terrorism and counter-terrorism specialist. So, I mean, today's topic is going to be wonderful, and we want to teach you out there, we want to educate you, we want to inform you on issues of terrorism and counter-terrorism as well as financing is concerned. This is from the London University in Netherlands and also a conflict analysis and mediation expert from the Kofi Annan Peacekeeping and Training Center. He has done a lot of work when it comes to intelligence gathering and forensics. And he has that expertise and knowledge also from Knutsford University. Welcome, Mr. Adib.
Thank you.
It's been a while.
It
and
has.
I know the pressure on you when it comes to this issue because, I mean, currently there are a lot of turbulence in the system with crime, robbery, and, I mean, highway robbery, contract killing, murders, and all of that. And with that, I know you don't sleep because people will be calling you, and just as we are also having you here in our studios today. So you're welcome.
Thank you.
And how has the situation been?
Alhamdulillah. Just that now we have a new Inspector General of Police, and there's so much confidence in him. Wow. And we are hoping that he's able to deliver. But you and I would be there to criticize when the need arises and to praise when it arises as well.
I was watching a video from you the other day on Facebook, and I mean, at a glance, I was like, why people don't want to be constructively criticized so that they can even do better?
Exactly.
Why society?
People it's to some extent, it's human nature,
Wow.
People always would want to be hailed, but when they are criticized, some of them find it difficult to stomach.
Yeah.
But the biggest gift anyone can give you is free advice, right?
Yeah.
So it is based on the advice that you'll be able to do your work better. Anytime I'm done with my TV and radio interviews, people call, "Oh, you did well. We loved your analysis." But I find nothing gratifying as the one who would call and criticize.
Exactly.
It's because it's from the critics that you'll be able to
do better.
Do it better next time.
Wonderful. It's true. And I often say that each time I also speak on maybe TV or radio, I find it difficult to listen to myself because I feel I have not really done anything. But here you are. But I mean, on the subject that we're going to deal with it today, I mean, it is something that you and I know that it is really eating into our society and is becoming, or it is a global issue that we need to deal with. But it used to be at some, let me say, a very far away from us. But currently, we see it more closer. And the word is so dreaded and so worrying that we tend to even give it different names in terms of political dispensation and all of that. But I'm sure the ordinary viewer who is watching us will want to understand these two components when we say money laundering and terrorism financing. Okay. And that's one sort your views and expertise on that.
Well, I remember some time ago, I attended a program with you at Alisa Hotel, and the issue of terrorism came up. I even gave a UN definition because I sought to ascribe terrorism to the Western Togolanders.
Okay.
I don't know whether you remember.
Yes, I
remember.
I remember.
Well, but first of all, before we'll be able to make sense of the money laundering and the terrorism financing issues, we need to put into perspective what terrorism is. Terrorism basically, has been defined by many actors. Okay. It's been defined by the UN, but it was very difficult reaching a consensus so far as defining terrorism is concerned, because a lot of those persons at the table are guilty. Okay. You understand? Okay. So the Kofi Annan definition was really very difficult to accept. But generally, in simple language, terrorism is the use of physical and psychological violence against innocent people to advance a political, religious, social, economic cause. Okay. So when you are at war and perhaps you hit a military target, by the definition, it is not terrorism. But when you attack people who are innocent and have nothing to do with what is going on, whether it is suicide bombing, whether it is drone attacks, whether it is a psychological warfare, fear into the people, that is also terrorism. And money laundering, in internet studies, there's what we call the underbelly, the underworld. That's the dark web, where criminals are able to engage in sale of illicit drugs, child pornography, etc. So money laundering is the dark web of the financial sector, where money is illegally acquired, are moved from one place to another through a sophisticated network of illegal means, rather than the banking sector, which sometimes attracts taxes, and of course it has to be proved. So for example, when you move money from the UK to Ghana, first of all, you would need to convince us that the money was acquired legally.
Okay.
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 Then when it is moved to Ghana, it doesn't go straight to that account. Maybe if it is $2 million or that, it is flagged at the Bank of Ghana, and EOCO picks it up. So they collaborate and get to find out that yes, indeed, it is legal money before it hits your account. Okay. However, with money laundering, what they do is, for example, they are able to sell drugs abroad, and when they make that money, they are not able to prove what it is. So there are some illegal channels, some weaknesses within the financial sector where they are able to move money, and with complicity from those in positions of responsibility, they are supposed to ensure that it doesn't happen. But because they've been compromised, these monies are able to move and they land in, private accounts, just like the case of Hash Papi.
Okay.
Mind you, a Nigerian police officer, a high-ranking police officer, has been indicted. Has been part in the investigation.
So there has to be, like it's a conduit, so definitely there has to be that spot where people aid them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So when these monies arrive, they are used to finance, because you see, the money is the lifeline to these terrorist organizations. They need the weapons. They need money to recruit. In some cases, the travels. I mean, a lot of those who fight in Syria came from Europe. They pay for their tickets,
exactly.
So they have money.
Yes. So you'll be wondering where those monies are coming from.
Exactly. So that is what they use to finance their terror activities. Apart from that, one of the challenges we have with terrorism, especially in sub-Saharan Africa, and with specificity to what is happening in Burkina Faso, is the fact that the terrorists seize control of areas where already government services don't reach. I hope you understand me.
So
government doesn't provide jobs. They're good from the system. That's the word, cut off. No jobs, no electricity, no water, no waste management, nothing. They are there to fend for themselves. So when these terrorists take over, what they do is they are able to exert some level of control because they provide services that your government doesn't provide. So they provide the water, electricity, and all that using those monies that are laundered. And in the end, they impose taxes. And in the end, what do we get? Local legitimacy. That is why the US is not able to defeat Taliban, because they have local legitimacy, because they have convinced the people that the government is corrupt, it's against you, we are your friends. Back us. And once there's local legitimacy, trust me, Sadiq, there's absolutely no way you can defeat them. Like it is happening in Burkina Faso. The people support these groups because the groups are more friendly to them than the government.
I'm actually getting scared, honestly. I'm actually really getting scared with this insight that you are giving to us, because then it means that when these groups even tend to go on with their activities, they might not even come to the cities. So they go to those vulnerable areas where our grandmothers and our village folks are, go and entice them, probably brainwash them, and then they can now use them to perpetrate those kind of crimes that we are doing through that illicit way of bringing in the money and all of that. So, and of course, so when we look at all that, we're talking about territorial integrity. So we have our maritime sector, we have our land borders, and we have our air space. Where do these things come from? I mean, is it that across Africa, we don't have this proper security within the territorial integrities that I've mentioned in order to curtail some of this? Because Africa is seen as the hub of all the bad things and conflict and all of those kind of things, especially with the Sahel region that you made mention of.
So the problem is, Sadiq, for years on end, we have focused all our attention on physical traditional security to the detriment of human security. And I came to the studio with a brother of mine called Mohsen, who is researching into human security, and I've also researched into human security before. My Master of Science degree, I researched on the topic human security as an emerging form of security governance, and I used in Africa, and I used Ghana as a case study. The thing is, no amount of drone attacks, no amount of bombs can defeat terrorism. It has come to stay. You see, if a farmer wants to get rid of weeds on his farm, if he trims the leaves of the weeds, what happens? It will grow back.
Yes.
But when you uproot it, when you attack it from the DNA, then you'll be dealing with it in a much more sustainable manner. Operation Bakan and a whole lot of other ones that has been implemented by ECOWAS, even at the AU level and all that, it's not making any headway. At the point, the French, they were fatigued. They said, Massa, we've had enough. We are tired. The question is, to what extent has it helped reduce the scourge of terrorism? Rather, it is creating more terrorists. Because if I'm at a wedding party, and in the name of attacking, collateral damage, one terrorist element, you kill all of my family members, congrats, you've just created another terrorist. So rather, nations should focus on human security, which first came to light in 1994, UNDP report on human development. That gives credence. Economic security, where people are assured of certain income at the end of the month, at least. They are financially independent. They have access to quality health care. They have access to water, access to food. Not just availability of food. Access is important. So if there's abundance of food and you don't have the purchasing power to access that food, it's useless. You know, community, environmental, community security is key. That is respect for the rights of the people, respect for the rights to demonstrate, for the people to bring out their frustration. You know, when you are facing family issues and you go before a counselor, the person tells, okay, cry it all out, let it all out. Because the more you keep it, so sometimes crying is good. Okay, so when the people are not happy and you stifle them, you don't want them to demonstrate, then it becomes a catalyst for disaster. Environmental security, our environment is being degraded by the day. Sand winning and all that. Ethiopia and Egypt, they are almost at the brink because of environmental factors over the river Nile. The Fulanis are constantly coming into contact with the locals because they are nomadics and they move according to the climatic conditions. And we know for the better half of sub-Saharan Africa, there's desert. Okay, rather the upper part of the is deserted. So the tropics, that is sub-Saharan. So these Fulanis are continuously coming down to graze. All right, and when they get to the communities and they are
I'm sure it's part of the reason that maybe in Ghana we have this farmer header issues around.
Absolutely, and we deal with the issues superficially. So until we deal with it fundamentally, in line with the sustainable development goals, trust me, it's just going to be a cycle. We would keep fighting and creating more terrorists. And
you know, you've actually mentioned something that oftentimes and sometimes when we are listening to news, we hear, so when we are listening to experts like yourself, we get to hear this human security phenomenon that from where you sit, do you think that we've been able to define it in such a way that we'll be able to deal with the many or the many crime or the conflict that we sought to have in terms of, for instance, the environmental issues that you raised and all of that? Have we really appreciated that word human security so that, like, if you look at the security architecture in Africa and Ghana in particular, have you really come to that forefront?
Well, it would interest you to note that some time ago we had a human security directorate at the National Security Secretariat in Ghana.
Okay.
And it was headed, the last time, it was headed by General retired Nunu Mensah.
Okay.
But since he was removed, it's almost defunct, okay? The problem with Ghana, like many other countries within sub-Saharan Africa, and I had that discussion with Mohsen on our way here, is the seeming over-reliance on preservation of the state.
Okay, so
make sure there's no coup. Yes,
okay.
There's no coup. Okay. There's no territorial, our territorial integrity is very well safeguarded. A minister's son is not kidnapped.
Okay.
The president is not threatened.
Okay.
But the human-centered approach to security is where we are not getting it right.
So how as a nation, with some of the examples that you've given us, like you look at Burkina Faso, you look at Mali, and other countries, I mean, how safe are we as a people, and what should we look out for? Because I was also talking to somebody who was telling me that, look, if not for my intervention, a young man would have been
radicalized.
Yes, radicalized, and then I mean he said that the guy practically didn't want to because of certain moral values that he beholds, and it was one of those. And then the person also talking to him and all of that helped. So taking the way as a country, I mean Ghana specifically, are we safe?
That's a tough one. We are safe, but there's no room for complacency.
Okay.
If you look at the crime statistics, from 2013 to 2017 to 2016, the crime rate keeps fluctuating.
Okay.
But in 2017, there were 609 Ghanaians murdered.
Okay.
Okay. But we have not been able to bring the murder rate down, because for the first quarter of this year, according to the Ministry of Interior, crime actually went up by about 30% as compared to last year, representing 144 persons killed.
What accounts for this?
A lot.
Okay.
Largely, we have not advanced policies that would disincentivize criminals from perpetrating crime in the first place. That's what we call situational crime prevention, okay? And one of the ways we can go about it is to improve investigations. Unfortunately, in Ghana, most of the investigation processes is manual. We lack the systems. If you go to other jurisdictions, like the US and many European countries, they have fingerprint databases. They have even DNA databases that is used to break cases involving crimes that were perpetrated in the 1970s and 80s, like the East Area rapist who turned out to be the Golden State Killer, who perpetrated his crimes in the 70s and 80s by raping and killing women. He was recently captured using a segment of DNA called genealogy. His grandson was arrested, his DNA taken, they ran it in the codex, they call it the codex database. That turned out, and they realized that this DNA is related to the Golden State Killer. Wow. That is how they arrested James D'Angelo, who actually was a police officer then. When he perpetrated those crimes. So if we have those systems in place, for example, I'm in this studio, I touch surfaces, okay? So if crime is perpetrated, you come collect the fingerprints, run it in the database, and you see the magic it will do. Unfortunately, we don't have enough crime labs, and the crime labs are preserved for the affluent.
So, but would you say that there's some sort of lost priority, or, I mean... Commitment.
And to a large extent, misplaced priority. Because our security is not improving, even though generally, if you compare Ghana to other West African countries, we are better.
I mean, we currently, with the statistics that came, I'm sure we were all jumping up the roof that we were second in Africa, first in West Africa, and then 38th in
Do you
the world.
believe those things?
Well, I mean, you are the expert.
Believe
so
in rankings at your own risk. Believe in rankings at the those who start, I think it's in the UK, right?
Yes.
Do they feel it more than we feel it? We those on the ground.
Okay.
Because I mean, now criminals have become so vicious that they've gone beyond coming after people like you and I.
Yeah.
They go after the most difficult of targets. Law enforcement officers, broad daylight. They even attack police stations. So you dare not sit in your peaceful office in the UK and give
in
me
all of this, it cannot continue if there's no that kind of support for those who go into some of this. Because someone also said that the crimes that you see in these vulnerable localities, the people that are behind, probably, let me use it superficially, maybe there will be those that are living in areas like probably Trasaco, this is just an example, those affluent areas. So they will be behind, and then they will send these vulnerable ones to go, either you are carrying some drugs or you are going to rob and all those kind of things. What is your view in connection with what we've just...
Well, the thing is, for example, some time ago, some illegal weapons were brought into the country, and I understand those clearing them were arrested. And I said categorically that it shouldn't end with those persons. We should make a conscious, deliberate, progressive attempt to find out who are the kingpins. So by dealing with it from the kingpin level, you should be able to do it in a much more sustainable way. So this drug peddling and all that, they have the kingpins. It's a sophisticated network of even very powerful people in society. For example, Guinea-Bissau has been labeled as the cocaine hub of West Africa. You know, to the extent that politicians get neck deep into, you know, this cocaine business. So until we are able to deal with it from that level, we would keep fighting it over and over again, and it would keep recurring.
Thank you very much. We've been having this discussion with Mr. Adib Sani. We're going to have the concluding part. We are not yet done, but time is not on our side. When we come back with the concluding part, we're going to understand how we can combat this financing of terrorism, as he has given us some indicators of the causes and the impact it has on various nations and all of that. This has been the Security Dialogue on Muslim Television and Media International. We've been discussing money laundering and terrorism financing. Until we come your way, same time next week, I have been your host, Sadiq Educhum, on the Security Dialogue. Stay tuned and ensure that you are each other's keeper when it comes to security, when it comes to safety. And that is what we sought to do here by informing and educating you on issues of conflict, peace and security, terrorism, and other related issues that are of much more concern to the peace of this world, in order for us to have progressive developmental issues or so to say improvements in our daily lives. Thank you. Assalamu alaikum.